So, as an architect, there are not many times when you get an opportunity for the nature to take over the architecture rather than the actual architecture critiquing the nature. This is where the case of the House of 49 Tree takes over. This is a house where we were presented with an opportunity to work with the nature, for the nature, and along with the nature, to give back to the nature. And probably that's the speciality of this house. As an architect, to kind of influence, let the nature influence your lines of design is something that we looked for in this project. And the ultimate goal was that, and I hope we did achieve that. Well, talking about the context, it was actually very interesting because this is bang in the middle of the Gurugram city, right? This is the main golf course extension road. Going towards the golf course extension road, and obviously the metro comes over this arena. You have two blocks of residential units on both the sides of this underground sort of a highway, I would say an extension to the highway. So the House of 49 Tree was bang in the middle of this sort of a play of residential units that were coming in. Obviously, this was the other side was much more developed as a residential unit sector. But once you went into the sort of a corridor where the House of 49 lied, we actually had this corner plot given to us, almost 833 square yards, with, I would say, 49 trees at the site. The clients, had a very specific demand. It was because they were green lovers themselves. So they wanted to definitely not, be overwhelming the given existing nature. They definitely wanted to use the trees. And from there came the idea of how to proceed forward in terms of designing a space without letting the trees go down at the site. Out here, obviously, the north was basically this side, the south was this side, the east and the west. The sun angles probably went like this throughout the summer and obviously the winter as well, with some angle tilt. If you see the sort of the trapezoidal axis, it's like this. So the dimensions probably are about, I would say, 16.1 meters. This way it was almost about 32.9 meters. This way, if you saw, it was about 33.6 meters. And this way it was almost 28 meters. So it was a very weird trapezoidal site, as I would say. It was a very difficult site to rearrange as an architect in terms of the existing bylaws, because the tree actually came at the periphery. So just imagine these beautiful 49 trees coming at the periphery and creating that sort of a drama play at the site. And we as architects, obviously, with the bylaws suggesting us to not build within the 10 feet of the axis, the site axes. Luckily for us, there was no tree in the middle, so we could actually use the mass, the FAR of the space. So we were definitely respectful of the lines. If you can see how the space was created within the house without touching the trees. And from there came the idea of the House of 49 Trees. So if you see the structure was obviously taken within the 10 feet penalties of From there, we obviously enter into the space. obviously this being the corner plot, we actually wanted to sort of create an angle access to anyone entering from the road out here, allowing the person to kind of be invited into this space. This was your double height space along with your lift space and the staircase area, which was given deliberately inside to because we saw that, you know, the serviceable areas, you know, including the kitchen, including your service core, was something that doesn't require you to actually see the nature or the environment outside. We deliberately did that so that the living, dining space looked into the pool area and the greens. Your master bedroom looked into the greens all over. The family lounge looked into the greens again, and the pool as well. And the grandmother's room also again looked into the greens. You as a client enjoy the microclimate that was available at the site rather than you being induced into the massy structures that are actually been done by in the existing structures in Gurugram. So obviously the ground floor actually consisted of the master bedroom, the mother's room, the kitchen, the family lounge, the living areas, majorly all the public spaces along with the master bedrooms. We actually had soft landscaping, which were the green areas in abundance at the site. So to kind of create these pathways along the structure, you know, to have these organic paths going along the structure was something that we definitely wanted to create. So that was a very a play of stillness, I would say, in terms of water, the elements, you know, the purity of the space, sort of talking to you as a viewer. You know, sometimes, you know, what the lockdown has actually taught us, that how important is it for us to actually have these sort of microclimates within our house, because at the end of the day you are only left with your house. Moving to the first floor was also where the remaining rooms came in. That was the daughter's room, the son's room, as well as the guest room. So out here, one of the most interesting things that I would like to inform you guys about was that how did we go about in, you know, firstly going about the servants. So servants were actually given these sort of a pardi systems at the facade, and we had these hidden sort of a network of staircases going directly to the top floor. So from the ground floor going through the first floor to the second floor where the servants came in. So this is where the sort of a block came in for the servants, sort of a core area, and we had a direct connection with the kitchen. And along with that came the idea to kind of, you know, allow the servants to go from outside into the grandmother's room, which actually had an opening for her to step out outside and be taken care of by these servants. Once we were done with the masters and the grandmother's room on the bottom, along with the public areas, we were left with a few of the rooms of the private areas, along with an extension to a bigger lounger that they needed on the upper floor, the first floor. The daughter's bedroom obviously was placed as the same module over the grandmother's room, with the same washroom ideology and the same master washroom that was there below for the son. The lounger that was there, the family lounger that was there below, actually became an extended sort of a family lounger where they became an open TV room with a sort of a bar unit, you know, sort of added to the area with a billiards table in the middle and a seater area. So the idea of creating the seating area, cantilevering on the sort of the swimming pool below, was to create that feel of you being floating up in the air on the water and watching into the greens. It had been 2 years when we had actually casted this balcony, and the trees had actually grown into the balconies. With the sun balcony as well, the trees had actually grown into it. The daughter's balcony had actually grown into it. Along with that, we actually gave the idea of the Parji system that we follow in a lot of our projects, which is actually a very Renaissance design scheme that we always do in our projects, where we actually had incorporated these floating walls, cantilevering from the main structure, and taking as much heat as it was possible to not allow the heat sort of to insulate or to kind of create an insulation barrier between the outside external layering as well as the internal layering. Out here, I'm going to talk about something very interesting. It's about the materiality at the space. Materiality, obviously, while we are going through a timeline where the Make in India is something that's really, really important, I think we sought to kind of use materials that have been tested with time in India. When you talk about a red sandstone, the Agra red sandstone, all the monuments in Agra, have been made and tested in time in terms of the climate change, the weather change in India, and I think it's withstood the time test. And I think that was one of the reasons why we definitely wanted to go with the Agra red sandstone. Along with that, if you could see, it kind of creates, it's a very earthy tone. We definitely wanted to kind of create a very earthy tone because the site had its flavor, its color, and to sort of complement it, we played with the shades of browns, the whites, the grays, the concretes, as well as the red sandstone. If you see the basic structure or the formwork of the elevation out here that we did at our side, it was a Pardi system, or what we call it, the cantilevered floating walls as they jut out from the side. So, you had these red sandstone walls coming in at these, junctions to create that insulation of the heat that was coming from the south side. And they were being overlapped by these concrete walls at these variable angles in terms of the parallel angles that were created because of this bylaws constraints of the 10 feet out here as well as out here. And you had these 50 by 50 and 75 by 75 slotted MS tubes that were also again created at site to give a flavor of overlapping materials at the site. Obviously on the second floor, while we came to the top through the staircase or the lift, we had this gymnasium or a recreational sort of a zone on the top, opening into the terrace, which was obviously made of the red sandstone again, externally. It was an open area looking into the landscapes of the not so beautiful Gurugram urban city, but we had this area as the stipulated, just for the servants area. As I would say, interiors is something that's really important, and there's a cliched statement saying that what is inside is outside and the outside is the inside, which was actually a major concept of the space of the House of the 49 Trees. So we ought to kind of respect what was going outside as an architecture to inside what was going on. So if you could see the walls inside in terms of the lift areas and all, they were all cladded with the red sandstone. There were these particular areas through and throughout at the ground floor where you could see the elements of the brownish shades, the red sandstones coming in parts and bits and pieces out everywhere. So we created a sort of a network of tonal variations, be it the stone in terms of the Italian stone that was used, to what we had actually conceptualized outside. So that the colors remain in the same sort of family of shades, and the interiors actually were done to not sort of overwhelm a viewer, because the overwhelming aspect was actually the nature taking over the site. Construction was also was a mayhem, because please understand, these are trees. They have their own roots, and the roots were actually going beyond the sort of a 10 feet scope. So we had to be really, really, really careful while doing, digging up in terms of the foundations of the main structure, the superstructure. So we defined these sort of holding walls out here at 10 feet, at about, I would say, 6 feet out here and 10 feet out here, to not allow any of the trees to be affected in terms of their roots. We actually let the nature do the talking, because with the Aravalli biodiversity and other biodiversities being around, there are these beautiful different type of birds coming in every evening, in the morning. So it was a nature calling in itself. It was to kind of create a balance between practicality as well as aesthetics, as well as site restrictions, as well as bylaws restrictions, as well as the client's need, as well as our ideology. So it was a lot of pointers coming together, co-joining and creating a piece of architecture, which wasn't architecture, but was the nature actually architecturing the architecture, as I would say.